Hey, what's up, chicken pickers? It's Vinny for PowerTwang.com. So in today's video, we're going to talk about 7 tips to make you a better guitar player. So hey, listen, I know like a lot of you guys, you're my students, you've purchased some of my courses. Let's say you stocked up on some courses and you have all this material. And I want to just create this video to kind of help you the most out of the material that you've purchased, and or either, purchase material or free from my website, or actually anybody else's courses for that matter. I got a little sticky note here on the back of my guitar to kind of help me. I got the old man memory going on here. Tip number 1, write down your goals. Write down what it is that you'd like to accomplish. If you don't know where you're going or what it is you want to do, you'll just kind of wander. There's like an old kind of saying that, like, if there's 2 ships in a harbor and one of the ships has no clear course set and no rudder, it's just gonna, flounder around in the harbor, not going anywhere. Whereas the other ship, if it has clear direction of where its destination or where it's going to, and it has a rudder to steer it in that direction, then that ship will make it there. So it's very helpful and to write down what it is you want to accomplish. I know, like, we're playing guitar and being a guitar player, that's more of a creative process. So sometimes that's hard to define as far as what it is you want to accomplish. So again, you can use any of my courses, for example. You could write down that you want to finish, go through the essentials course, and within 8 weeks, and be able to play the solo that goes along with it. It could also be like, let's say if you have a cover song that you always wanted to play, like the Nervous Breakdown from Brad Paisley or something, you could just use that as a benchmark. Maybe you just write that down as a goal, set a deadline, and break it down into sections. Say, okay, in 2 weeks, I want to be able to play the intro. In 1 month, I want to be able to play the intro and half the first verse section. And then just kind of break it down until you get to your end result. So again, just write things down. I'm a firm believer of writing it down versus just putting it in a computer. There's something that happens when you actually put pen to paper and write something down. It actually crystallizes it in your subconscious a little more than it does if you were just to type it out on a computer or something. So I like having paper journals. Create a practice schedule or regimen. Again, this kind of goes back to the same thing. Like if you go to sit down to practice and you don't really have a plan, you probably won't get a whole lot done within that practice. So again, it comes down to having a specific destination. And if you have it written down and you come up with a regiment that works for you, then you're going to get a lot more out of your practice schedule. For example, if you have, let's say, 60 minutes a day to practice, you could write down, like, hey, for the first 10 minutes I want to warm up. The next 20 minutes I want to focus on technique. The next 20 minutes I'll work on a song. And then the last 10 minutes I'll just freestyle and improvise over something. And then what you can do is you can actually break it down even more. So let's say, again, if you're going to warm up for 10 minutes, you could break it down. I'm going to warm up with scales, alternate picking for 5 minutes, hybrid picking for 5 minutes. Then if you're going to work on technique, you can break it down to say, this week or this month or, this day I'm going to focus on bends, or I'm going to focus on, double stops. You could pick a specific technique and really just kind of hone in on it. And again, just work on songs and then wrap it up by doing some freestyle. I always think it's good to kind of end a practice with jamming over something and just kind of letting go and getting rid of the structure. I think that's kind of helpful too. So again, and it's going to be different for everybody. Obviously, if you don't have 60 minutes a day, maybe you only have 30 minutes. You might, break that down into a little bit different structure. But again, having a practice regimen or schedule is another part of defining what it is you want and what you want to accomplish. And you will get a lot more out of the material and a lot more out of your practice routine if you actually define what it is that you're trying to accomplish. All right, number 3, practice consistently. It's better to practice 1 hour a day, 7 days a week, than it is to practice 7 hours on 1 day a week. It's just how it is, It's the same thing like going to the gym. If you go to the gym and 1 day a week and expect to get results, it's not likely going to happen. You have to have consistency. I personally, I aim for 6 days a week, but it's good to have consistency, even if it's 30 minutes. Even if you can only practice 30 minutes a day, it's better to do that, practice at 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week, than it is to try to cram in 3 or 4 hours of practice on 1 day a week. And I would actually, if you could, as far as consistency goes, if you have like a day planner, schedule it in and make it like an important appointment that you won't cancel. That's a good way to kind of get into the habit, is just make it important, and you will not cancel it, and you're going to do it. And even that too, sometimes if you can't do 60 minutes a day in one sitting, you could do 2 30-minute sessions. That's actually a really good way to break up your practice schedule. And there are, I think, some studies that say that that's actually a better way to absorb the material, because your attention span is only so long. So it might be better to practice more consistently in shorter cycles. But just find something that works for you and be consistent. Tip number 4. Be realistic with your expectations. Like a lot of times, we as guitar players, we just want to be better tomorrow. And that's just not the way it works. You really have to put in the mileage. You have to spend time. And you don't see results overnight. Actually, it's months before you usually start seeing results. And you just have to be willing to push through when you're not seeing those results, because it does take time for them to come into fruition. A lot of times, like with when I say like write down your schedule or write out your goal, a lot of times we are overly optimistic about what we can achieve. And then if you do that, then you're going to feel bad if you don't meet those expectations. So be realistic. It's, when you sit down to work on a course, and you're not going to blow through the course in a week or two. In most cases, especially if you're trying to work in the solo examples, a lot of times it's going to take 2 or 3 months of working on it consistently for that to pay off for you. So just be realistic in your expectations. Tip number 5. Focus on the fundamentals. I know that sounds boring, but that's where you're going to get the most payback for your efforts. I think it was Bruce Lee that once said that he wasn't afraid of the man who practiced 10,000 kicks one time each. He was scared of the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. A lot of times you might glaze through the basic and fundamental concepts just to get into the juicy stuff, but you're really overlooking the true gold, which is the fundamentals. Focus on the fundamentals. It's not near as sexy, but it's going to be, that's where you'll actually see the most results. Like if you work on fundamentals for, let's say, 2 or 3 months, and you really just focus in on one fundamental, After that 2 or 3 months time, you're going to have that nailed, and then you can move on to something else. And when you do that, it compounds. And that's the way that you're going to see the most results, is by focusing on the fundamentals. Everything else, all the juicy stuff, the sexy stuff will come later and will be a lot easier and more natural if you focus on your fundamentals. Tip number 6, use a metronome and or a drum track. I prefer a drum track just because it's a little more, to me it drives a little more and it sounds more like I'm playing with somebody versus just a clicking of a metronome. But it does help with consistency. And again, we're talking like a lot of these tips come down to being consistent, practicing consistently, focusing on fundamentals. Playing with a metronome is, again, that's working on fundamentals and being consistent. So work with a metronome and or a drum track. And with today's technology, you can get metronomes on your smartphone if you don't have one. There's no real reason not to do it anymore. So focus on the fundamentals, play with the metronome. Tip number 7. Record yourself. I know this is going to be awkward. It's awkward and it's scary, but it really does help to be able to hear your progress. When you're playing and practicing all the time, it's hard to be able to hear how much you've progressed. It's almost kind of like looking in a mirror every day. Sometimes, like when you look in the mirror every day, you don't like really realize that I put on 30 pounds, but then you like look back at the picture that you've taken from last year and you're like, oh, wow, I've put on a little weight. If you're looking at it daily, you just don't tend to see it. So record yourself. With today's technology, it's cheap enough that you have no excuse not to do it. You can record yourself on your smartphone. You got these little standalone recorders that you could use. Now, like a Pro Tools system is pretty inexpensive. Recording technology is so cheap, there's no reason not to do it. And you don't have to record the entire practice. Let's say if you're going to practice for an hour, you don't need to record the entire practice. Maybe you just record that last 10 minutes of you improvising over a specific song. And you don't necessarily have to do it every practice. Every couple of weeks, once a month, if you just do this and then you listen back to it, and you will definitely be able to hear the improvements that you're making. And then what's going to happen is when you hear yourself getting better, because sometimes like when you practice, you're gonna have like a point where you see yourself or hear yourself improving, and then you're gonna kind of plateau. And it's during those plateaus where players tend to get frustrated and give up and things like that. So if you hit this plateau, sometimes again, just like recording yourself playing over something, and you can actually hear, hey, that was pretty good. And it motivates you to go back down and keep at it when you're in that stagnant state. So record yourself. Again, it doesn't have to be daily, but every few weeks, once a month, just record a certain part of the practice, and then just take the time to listen to it, analyze it, and you will notice a difference. If you put in the time, you're practicing consistently, you're practicing with a metronome, you are putting in the mileage, you should be able to record yourself, listen back to it, and hear an improvement. Okay? And lastly, as a bonus tip, we'll call this bonus tip, or tip number 8, most of all, have fun. Sometimes when we get into like a mode like this where we're trying to practice and trying to be consistent and have a regiment, sometimes you get so caught up in the process that you don't enjoy it. So, that's the whole reason that we play guitar, is because it's fun. Maybe you originally got into it because of the girls or whatever, but ultimately we do it because it's fun. And you don't want to forget that. So again, that's a good reason to like end your practice freestyling and improvising over something, because you know that's fun. That's forgetting about the actual, you know, scales or working on picking or working on the bends and things like that. You're actually just going out and having fun with it. So end the practice by having fun and just enjoy what you do, enjoy the process. Again, it's not a destination, it's actually a journey. So just enjoy the ride and have fun. So thanks again for all your support, and we will see you soon. I'm Benny. We're out. See you.